more accessible Canada. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister has repeatedly cited national security as a pretext to avoid answering basic questions about Beijing's election interference. This is exactly the opposite of the advice that he received from CSIS that said that the government's policy in combating foreign interference be grounded in transparency and sunlight, and that foreign interference be exposed to the public. Why does the Prime Minister refuse to follow the advice of CSIS?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs, Infrastructure and Communities.
Madam Speaker, the importance of our national security and protecting our democracies should be something that every single Canadian takes seriously. While the Conservatives continue to play politics with our national security, serious governments like ours take national security seriously. All of the information that Conservatives want would be available. All we're asking is that it's treated in a way that protects our national security and ensures that our adversaries don't get access to the very information that they would try to use to undermine our democracy.
The honourable for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister very conveniently and very specifically claims that he was not briefed about candidates receiving money from China, except that is not what is at issue. What is at issue is a vast campaign of election interference by Beijing involving 11 candidates. Was the Prime Minister briefed about that, yes or no?
Yes. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Said the protection of our democracy is paramount. But with that, protecting our democracy also means respecting it. Yesterday, the member opposite, when I stood and rose in this place, continually screamed for me to sit down. Yet, he didn't have that same emotional outburst when the Minister of Public Safety was answering that question. So, Madam Speaker, some advice to the members opposite. If they support the protection of democracy, they might want to start by respecting the women that have been democratically elected in this place.
Now again, the response from the member for St. Albert, Edmonton, while the Parliamentary Secretary was speaking, is also not acceptable. And she was answering the question, and she doesn't need to be told that she needs to sit down. Okay, I will correct that one on that last point, but that it was unacceptable what was happening there. The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
One moment here. Again, the honourable for Lethbridge is out of order. Yes. The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
Like a game of dodgeball, the Prime Minister has become very deft at the 5 Ds of question periods: dodge, deny, deflect, deceive, and dribble. The problem is, when it comes to China's interference in our Canadian elections, it's not a game because it's serious business, and it's been widely reported that the Prime Minister received specific, credible information on election interference in Canada, and he's done nothing about it. So let's try again. Has the Prime Minister received any briefings or memos, verbal or written, specific to foreign interference in Canadian elections by the Chinese Communist government? Yes or no?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Madam Speaker, I assure my colleague that we take all allegations of foreign interference very seriously. That's why we struck independent, non-partisan professional panels to look at these allegations, who subsequently confirmed that the results of the elections in 2019 and 2021 were both free and fair. And more importantly, Madam Speaker, we're going to continue to do everything to protect our democratic institutions, including our elections, so that Canadians can have their voices represented in this chamber, including my honourable colleague, the Parliamentary Secretary for Intergovernmental Affairs, who does stellar work for her riding and on this issue. Thank you.
L'honorable leader adjoint de l'opposition officielle à la Chambre.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
The Honourable Deputy Leader of the Official Opposition. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The best way to protect our democracy is to respect the guidelines of CSIS. I have many briefings in my hands for the Prime Minister, largely redacted, but they say that Canada could use a policy on transparency that would draw attention to the fact that foreign interference should be made public. Madam Speaker, the question's simple. Why is the Prime Minister afraid of following the lead of his own national security agency and telling the whole truth to Canadians? There's nothing partisan. It's coming from CSIS. The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Madame la Présidente, je suis très fier de...
Madam Speaker, I'm very proud of the government's work on this file, which has increased transparency by creating institutions such as NSICOP and others. The Conservatives never took such action. This shows our devotion to protecting our democratic institutions in a transparent way. Thank you.
Madame la Présidente, nouveau record au chemin.
Madam Speaker, a new record at Roxham Road. 3,901 people came through in October. All these people could have crossed the border with dignity if Canada suspended the Safe Third Country Agreement. But the federal government's inaction pushes them towards Roxham, where they're met by